roles. We're championing human rights, we're advocating inclusiveness and world cooperation. We have this country where it is on the brink of total devastation, but it's able to pull itself out and move forward positively. We've got winning performances in the sports field where we've got gold medals, and also the spirit of Ubuntu and warmth that keeps this country together. So we've seen the involvement of South Africa in world bodies like the United Nations G20. We've seen BRICS, we've seen the African Union, where South Africa is playing a leading role and basically being a shining beacon and an example to the world as to how peace and reconciliation can actually be done. We've got events here in this province of KwaZulu-Natal, like the Comrades Marathon, which is the most popular road race in the world. We all know Lady Smith Black Mambazo, who have won several awards overseas, which is a group that comes from South Africa as well as KZN. So we also should be very proud. We know Mama Miriam Makeba came from this country as a global icon and legendary singer and anti-apartheid activist. We've got Mark Shuttleworth, who we know as a space travel entrepreneur. We've got Elon Musk, who's one of the richest people in the world now. If we don't know, he was actually born here in South Africa and lived in Pretoria until his later teens, when he then moved to the United States. Alright, so we've got Trevor Noah now, who we know hosts one of the most iconic shows in the United States. He's South African. We've got Tusombedu and Charlize Theron, who are actresses that have basically set the world alight with their skills. You know the Woman King now, which is on, and other movies such as Monster. Formula One is a motor racing sport, and most South Africans don't know that there was once a champion that came from South Africa in the 70s, in Jody Scheckter. We now talk about Ayrton Senna, we talk about Michael Schumacher, we talk about Lewis Hamilton, but we don't know that there was once a champion from this country. So these are things that we need to bring forward. We have Sfiso Nhlapo, who's a BMX superstar and an Olympian. We have renowned writers from this country, Eskia Mphahlele, Wilbur Smith, and Nick Ncome. In the animation field, which is where we are involved, in our comic series, we've got Lebu M, who took part in The Lion King, the animation series, and we've got Gary Player, who is one of the top golfers in history that has come from South Africa. We've got episodes where we could look at as negative, involving Gary Player. We've got also some that we could look at as learnings and are positive, that are now building the country, that we could learn from as a country. So we would not complete this lecture without mentioning some of the white South Africans that have actually been victims of apartheid. White people that have been victims of this system called apartheid as well. Because when we look at this topic, we look at ourselves as black people as being the only victims. But we've got the likes of Clive Rice and Nas Porter, who in the 80s were the best in their respective fields. But unfortunately for them, they could not compete internationally because South Africa was isolated at that time. So these are people that have lost out. And these are white people that were victims of the system of apartheid. So we are just saying that we need to let white people know that we acknowledge at the same time that they were also victims. And as victims, together we need to come together and heal this country and build this country moving forward. Where are we now as a country? 20 years after the freedom of 1994, where do you think we are as a country? We know that the legacy that was left by apartheid is glaring. It's obvious for everyone to see. South Africa has the undesirable distinction of being the most unequal country in the world. We have this gap that is widening between the rich and the poor in the country. So how do we work together as citizens of the country to make sure that this gap does not widen? How do we make sure that we benefit as a country, both black and white? Right. So we know that the transformation period, as we were saying, has not been fast enough. But what are we then doing to make sure that this transformation process speeds up? We've got beautiful laws that have been promulgated. These are laws that on paper look good for pushing this country forward, but we seem to be taking 5 steps forward and 10 steps back. How do we then make sure we remedy this situation? So we've seen things like renaming places with African indigenous names. But instead of this process being welcomed, we've seen that there has been negative publicity around those things. We've seen that there has been a friction that has been caused by it. So what is causing this friction? We remember Pretoria is still called Pretoria, but some people call it Tshwane. And some people will have arguments that no, but it's not all of Pretoria, Tshwane is the area surrounding it. Instead of sitting and saying, how do we produce activists that will build this country forward? How do we create an environment that when you talk about these things, you don't get labeled? How do we create an environment where when you talk about these things, you are not sent on a guilt trip? How are you seen as not targeting people? And how do we heal these divisions that were left by apartheid? When do we start seeing this tangible change? Things that we can point at and say, this is what has changed, this is what has improved. So we keep seeing that on the one hand, we have the majority of black people that are reaching out to white people, but we are seeing white people being in denial. What causes that? Finger pointing. We should be realizing once again that we are all victims of a system. If we are all victims of a system, how do we then come together and make sure that this unfortunate past does not repeat itself? So let us remember that how you treat a wound is not merely by putting a bandage on the wound. You have to clean the wound. You have to take out all the disgusting things that make this wound to be toxic to the body. So as a nation, we need to find solutions. So where do we go from here as a country? When do we start working on meaningful reconciliation? Where we're seeing this reconciliation not only on paper? When do we start having material things that change the lives of our people as a collective? Instead of fighting, when do we start coming to the table and saying, let us talk to one another, instead of talking past one another? So building patriotic activists who love this country, which is the land of their birth, and are willing to go the extra mile to ensure that this country works, is something that has been done before. We've pointed out examples of people that have made sure that they contribute from both sides of the divide, whether they are black or white. We keep looking at the arts as well. The arts have played a very important role. We keep going back to music. Some people will remember Johnny Clegg and Sipho Mchunu of Juluka and Savuka fame, who when we were growing up, we would see them performing together. That on its own was a miracle. We saw Paul Simon with Lady Smith Black Mambazo combining through music and producing some of the most beautiful songs. So this shows that people of color, people who are black and white, can actually work together. One of my favorites is where, for the younger generation that will remember Kwaito music, where we saw Duduzi Shabalala, who is popularly known as Mandoza, Zulu person. He teamed up with an Afrikaner producer called Gabile Roo, and they produced a massive hit called Galagat. I'm sure we all remember Galagat. And when that song starts playing, we see people from both races dancing to that song. That is on its own magic. When do we then create those moments